Hello and welcome to the programme. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party has won a surprise victory in the country's election. With almost all of the votes counted, results give Likud a clear lead over its main rival, the centre-left Zionist Union, whose leader Yitzhak Herzog has conceded victory. Mr. Netanyahu now has to build a coalition government. Well, there are 120 seats in Parliament, which is known as the Knesset, and a majority of 61 is needed to form a government. Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud party has won 30 of those seats. Likud's main rival, the Zionist Union, has won 24. And significantly, the Joint Arab List, an alliance of Israeli Arab-dominated parties, came third with 14 seats. Well, let's crunch all the numbers with our correspondent in Jerusalem, the BBC's Mark Lowen. He joins us there. And Mark, lots to discuss. And one thing I know one of your guests was talking about, just how democracy is working, given that the coalition of Arab supporting parties has come third.
Yes, and that will be an important voice of opposition, I think, Kasia, in this parliament, representing the wishes and desires and priorities of Israel's Arab population that makes up about 20% of the population. But the main story from the night, clearly, is the victory of Benjamin Netanyahu. He now says he will have 2 to 3 weeks to form a coalition. He thinks it'll be done by then. He'll form a right-wing nationalist coalition with other right-wing parties and possibly some orthodox parties as well. He might have to take a centrist party as well into the coalition to reach the over 61-seat majority. A very decisive victory for a man who was trailing in the opinion polls, and then as recently as last night with the exit polls, it appears that it was going to be a dead heat between him and the centre-left. But he pulled off this very, very surprise victory. Let's talk a little bit more about this issue of the Arab parties and what sort of voice they will now have in the new parliament. Because I'm joined now live here by Elhanan Miller, who is the Arab Affairs reporter for the Times of Israel. Elhanan, what do you think it will mean to have a party representing the Arabs like this, with probably about 14 seats in parliament?
Well, if they manage to stay united after these elections, they could be the head of the opposition in some constellation. When I was interviewing Ayman Odeh, the head of the list, 2 weeks ago, he was looking forward to this role. He said that as head of the opposition, he's going to meet any dignitary that comes to visit Israel, and he'll be able to sort of argue the case for the Arab population in front of the world. So at least if they're not part of the government, they can at least be more active than they were as in the opposition.
So it will give them a platform, clearly. What has been the reaction among the Israeli Arabs and among the Palestinians you've spoken to Netanyahu's victory? Because he is somebody who is very hawkish and very hardline on the Palestinian issue.
He is, but I don't think that the Palestinians had high expectations from Herzog either. Herzog and Livni veered to the right during their campaign. It didn't seem to most Palestinians that I spoke to that there would be a huge difference in policy between the right and the left. Let me remind you that historically it was right-wing leaders in Israel who made the most significant territorial concessions. It was Menachem Begin in the late 1970s, and then again Sharon in 2005. So it's clearly the right wing that can deliver these concessions and not the left. So the Arabs don't necessarily see the left as delivering more than the right.
And in the run-up to the poll, we were hearing that the main priority for voters were socio-economic issues, the cost of living, the cost of food, etc. In the end, they went for a candidate who has placed security at the heart of the campaign. Does that suggest that the Palestinian issue has trumped the socio-economic issues in this election?
Not necessarily. Israel is a relatively prosperous country. It weathered the economic turbulence in Europe quite well. And Israelis, by and large, I see trust Netanyahu's economic performance. He was considered a very successful finance minister last decade. And Israelis are relatively secure economically. So I don't think it's necessarily the security issue that trumped it. They just see Netanyahu as a more stable, trustworthy leader.
Okay. Elhanan Miller, thank you very much indeed. Now, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu has a lot of delighted supporters today, a lot of loyalists who said don't write him off too soon, particularly when those opinion polls were showing him trailing the centre-left. But he has plenty of critics as well among the Palestinians, among the left, and also in the White House, of course, where the relationship between Israel and the US is at a very low level. They see him as an obstacle to any kind of resolution of the Palestinian process. For a year, there has been no progress at all with the Palestinians. The peace talks broke off last April. He says that there will be no Palestinian state under his watch. So certainly on that issue, he's going to maintain a pretty nationalist, hard line. He says that he will try to fight to reduce the cost of living, the cost of housing, grievances that were voiced during this campaign. He certainly has his hands full, Kasia, as he tries to piece together a coalition to lead this country forward. And if he finishes his 4-year mandate, he would be Israel's longest ever serving prime minister.
Yes, indeed. What an achievement. It will take 2 to 3 weeks to form a government. For the time being, Mark Lowen, as always, monitoring all of that for us from Jerusalem. Thank you very much. Lots more, as you'd expect.